So AJ, I didn't tell you this, but when you spoke at the beginning of your thing,
Yeah.
you remember I asked, not a question, but I made a point. At some point, I raised my hand, and well, the guy sitting next to me, whatever, I think he was with his partner on the other side, so he didn't talk to me at all. But then after that, he's like, dude, I totally recognize your voice. You're Mauricio. You're from the podcast. Like, I listen to that thing all the time. And he was like, suddenly like a new guy wanted to be my new best friend. It was awesome.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Welcome to Drunk Real Estate.
Grab a drink and enjoy the show.
Hey there, welcome to episode 100 of Drunk Real Estate. I am Kyle Wilson, Ashley Wilson's husband, and I'm joined by two of my best friends and one grumpy mother over here. And like we're gonna do a cool episode. We want to do something cool. We've been talking about conspiracy theories, and of course, we can't agree on what conspiracy theories we're going to talk about. Jay thinks that we're only allowed to talk about a conspiracy theory if the four of us disagree on it. And we're all like,
if there's at least one person, if we all four agree on like something, why? What are we going to?
But you haven't even asked, you have no idea whether we agree or not. You have no idea.
The point of a conspiracy is not that everyone has to disagree on it. The point is that a lot of people do believe it, regardless of whether or not it's true. And so just because we agree on whether it's true or not, doesn't mean that it's not interesting to talk about.
You don't even know. Nobody was polled as to whether we agree. So how do you know if we agree with it or not?
Every single, like we have this spreadsheet. First of all,
we all agree that Bigfoot's real, but we don't all agree on other things.
We should post this spreadsheet for the viewer, and so everyone should say, okay, this is what we should have talked about, because we had this. So what I did, I went out and I made the spreadsheet.
Kyle, if you post a spreadsheet, nobody's going to be able to access the spreadsheet. Nobody's got the password. Nobody can access it. Nobody can edit it. There's going to be a whole mess.
So I did this whole spreadsheet where of all these different things, and everyone got to vote on about every fifth one. Jay writes a little comment. Don't we all agree on this? Don't we all agree on this? And it just got to the point where like, Jay, we could still discuss it without agreeing on it.
Then let's discuss it.
We don't agree with it anyway.
Hold on. I got this new light behind me that I could put up like little sayings and stuff. And I made one just for this occasion because I knew that Jay was going to come on here and he's going to get grumpy at some point. So I made a little thing that says Jay is mad. There you go. I've had this for one episode, and that's how long it took me for being able to put up. Anyway, so is
that from Atari days, like from 1987?
Yeah, it's great. You could put I could put little Atari men on it too. It'd be great, or women. I don't want to judge. Anyway, this is for you, Mauricio. So I thought for an entire episode, why don't we do the top 10 conspiracy theories? Because I know you just love top 10s.
Well, that's what we should have been arguing about, not like whether everybody's agreed with it. The fact that we're going to do this episode with a ridiculous top 10 at the beginning, we were talking about the 7 viewers we had before the show. We're going to lose half of them just because we're starting with the top 10. So I apologize for the 4 of you that have already left.
That it is a good point. We still got to talk about what we're drinking, because this is still called Drunk Real Estate. So Mauricio, what are you drinking tonight?
I'm drinking champagne because you know what? We're celebrating. I'm drinking a Veuve Clicquot Rosé. Enjoying a nice little bottle of champagne because it's warranted. I was gonna wear party hats, but I couldn't get it. I didn't have time to go get them.
Do you not get fed? Like, is your food only at the office and like you show up? Because every single
day
episode,
I was gone from I left the house at 6:15 and I rushed to the office. So like I haven't eaten anything today.
I know California is a war zone right now, and like maybe you can't get to the local bodega because it's just fire bombs in the way. But
there's all these kings that are in the way.
Jay, what are you drinking?
I am drinking a bottle of Côte d'Aron, a French wine, and
that's either from Costco or somebody you don't remember gave it to you.
Somebody I know very well gave it to me.
Just you never gives anyone props, for like saying, hey, thanks for the wine.
If you sent me wine, Kyle, I would give you props.
Last week he was very, very excited about his wine, but he didn't give anybody credit because he didn't remember who gave it to him.
AJ, what's going on? So AJ, I wanted to ask, because you're not in your normal podcast studio. You don't have Ernie. So did you purposely just put that little tiny dinosaur skull right behind you just so we got a little taste of Ernie? Like, is that what's going on?
No, Alex is gone, so I'm not in the studio. So I'm in my office, and my staff actually got me that as a gift. And so
I assume that's not real then if your staff
No,
got it.
that one's not real. No.
Probably from Costco.
But this one is
Ooh.
Oh, there you go.
Wait,
Megalodon.
whoa. You believe dinosaurs are real? Oh, we need to talk.
I
We
do.
need to talk about
Conspiracy
this.
theory is dinosaurs today, apparently.
And
definitely need
AJ's
to talk
still,
about this one.
still rolling with the boat chic again too, with the collared shirt, short sleeves, showing a little chest hair. I like the theme you got going on here. So with Alex gone, does that mean that the Diet Coke machines shut off too, or do you still got some of that?
No.
Dude, by the way, I saw the
Diet Coke.
I actually witnessed the Diet Coke operations last week, and it's impressive. Let me tell you, it is an impressive. The Red Cup Solo Cup alone is worth a whole episode to talk about.
Yeah, the amount of Diet Coke that they bring to this office has to be insane.
All right, well, I'm going with Little Maker's Mark. Bring it back to the bourbon. I probably should have gone champagne now that Mauricio's got it, but yeah, I dropped the ball on that, but I do love me a little. And I got this cool cup too. You ever? So first of all, I should have asked how you guys' Father's Days were. But happy Father's Day to everyone here. We're all fathers. But this is one of those like Father's Day gifts where like you smoke one cigar and all of a sudden you're like, oh, you drink bourbon and cigar? They get you a little cup that has a built-in cigar holder. That's a little Father's Day gift. Oh, and shout out, Jay sent me this. Apparently I got a shout out. Someone messaged me about Father's Day and said that traditionally in Germany, fathers are just supposed to all go out into the woods on their own with a case of beer and drink together so next time we'll do that for our Father's Day episode. We'll all go to the woods and drink.
Hey, are you shooting for 100 minutes of intro? Is that the goal here?
Oh geez, it's already starting. I gotta pour myself.
I mean, I know it's 100th episode, so we're doing the top 10, and I just thought maybe
you're bringing it up on me because I tell a 30-second story when Jay just told his like 8-minute story about a big 2,000 pounds getting delivered to his front step. Oh, okay, thanks. Can't wait to catch you on one of these. All right, let's get into this. We're gonna start soft. I started with the easy ones at the beginning. And I didn't realize it was a requirement that we all had to disagree on this. So I guess I'm just going to disagree on some. So we're going to start with. Wait, did someone move something around on this sheet?
Oh, Jay's got a smirk on his face.
I did not. Clearly, Kyle's not prepared.
No, I have it all set up in a current way in my sheet. All right, I'm going to start with the easy ones. So the easy ones, the number one conspiracy theory, in my opinion, that is the easiest one. Well, number one, I'll start with 1 and 2. First one is the moon landing never happened.
When you say the easiest one, does that mean like easy to agree with, disagree with? Like
yeah, easy for us to discuss because there's so much information out there and it's been debated for so long. And that first one's the moon landing never happened. Obviously, it's but there are some, the common themes and why it didn't happen is there was no stars in the photos, the flag was waving when there's no atmosphere there, there's no blast crater under the lunar module, multiple light sources. These are all like the reasons that people think. But I've watched a few documentaries on it, and I believe they actually pulled it off. What do you guys think?
There's evidence that it was done beyond a shadow of a doubt. Three countries have flown lunar modules past the moon and taken pictures of the landing sites and the old equipment sitting down on the landing sites. So unless you believe that this is not just a conspiracy amongst U.S. scientists,
well, I don't think the conspiracy is that they've never landed there. I think the conspiracy was like, if you like, I'm sure Jay's probably the only one in this who could remember it because he's the only one who's that old. At the time, it was a race, and so the conspiracy is that they were worried about they were going to lose the race, so they faked the first one so that they could win the race.
I think when you're addressing these conspiracies, you have to go to the heart of the evidence or proposed evidence of why the opposite they think is true. So in this case, in the moon landing, there's a lot of video out there that doesn't add up, and I've seen the video, and it's absolutely true that the video itself doesn't add up. But I think where people either it's taken out of context or for whatever reason, but it's like they actually filmed and practiced this thing before they went on the moon. So this is all documented that they actually had a production. They did have a production facility in Nevada, in Arizona. I think that did dry runs. I forget exactly why they did it, but there is footage that's coming out that is from footage that was not on the moon, because they did practice it. They did rehearse it, but that doesn't mean that they didn't actually have the moon as well. So when you see those videos that don't add up, a lot of those are the actual practice runs that they did in a set.
And I think I heard too that one of the photos from that was released as like at the same time as the other ones. So that's why like that one photo of it's like, oh, it must all be fake because that one photo was obviously fake. And that, that could just be the equivalent of an intern releasing the wrong photo and getting everyone in trouble.
I mean, you got to put it in perspective though of time. So what was the actual date that we landed on the moon?
1963.
You mean the first time?
Yeah, the first time. The moon landing video, the famous one.
Well, the first time was when the pyramid. Wait. The first time was when the pyramids were built. Way like 10,000 years ago. That's when the first landing was. By the way, I can't believe that the Egyptian pyramids didn't make the top 10, or I don't think it made the list.
Let's call it 69. Go back just 30 years prior and think about where we were just 30 years prior. Right. The leap in technology and everything. I mean, you're talking about they were still using horses in war during World War I. Yeah, that's a big leap for people to be like, hold on here.
It's a compelling thought, but it's also, you also have to put that with like, what was the technology for us to actually fake that too?
No. I'm saying why people would believe that it's fake, because they're looking at it and it's not comprehensible to them.
Right. But that's what I'm saying, is that it's not comprehensible that we would have the technology
to fake it either.
To fake it. That's like that. If you look at where we were for photographic and video 30 years before that, then the fact that we would have the technology to fake it. So let's move on to the second, I think most famous one, is that there was two shooters involved in the 1963 assassination of President John F. Kennedy, which I think I think it's a little more interesting. What do you think, Jay?
So I have a bunch of heuristics I use when I'm looking at a conspiracy theory. And the first one I ask is there any evidence that it can't be true? So, for example, like with the moon landing, there was evidence that it's true. And so if there's photographic evidence that I can look at and with my own eyes, that's one thing. There's no evidence that it can't be true. So number one, it's a possibility. So let's start there. Number two, does the conventional story have any of its own weaknesses? And the truth is, the conventional story for the Kennedy assassination was that some guy who has very poor eyesight, has never shot a gun professionally, was able to make a perfect shot.
I thought he was like Army trained.
He was Army trained, but he was like infantry or something. He wasn't a sniper. And so he got two shots off very quickly on a gun that's very difficult to get two shots on. And one was absolutely perfect. Not saying it's not possible, 100% possible, but that story is a little far-fetched.
Key witnesses died under very unusual circumstances. The official investigation was extraordinarily rushed, and it was just riddled in flaws. How they did the investigation, right? And there's the problem of documents. They've never released the documents. So if it's not, people are like, why not release it all? Like, if it is just what you said, why do you have all these classified documents about the assassination? But you're saying you know everything. Then why not release it?
I mean, there was just too many things to me. Like, there's the whole single bullet theory where it basically went through him, and then like it went through four different things, but then the bullet was completely intact.
That one can be explained.
Yeah, but then the bullet wasn't completely intact though.
That one's
like
different. Yeah.
Like that's one of those things. Okay, it was possible, improbable that the bullet on that trajectory basically made a turn, like hit something and made a turn, and they do all this stuff, but then the bullet's completely intact. And then, as you said,
the bullet in Vice. Did you ever see the Vice big news article about shooting spree? And they have a picture of a bullet in the bullet hole in Vice News. It's in the shell, and they took it as if that was the bullet, and it's still in its casing. They didn't realize it was a non-fire bullet. That's kind of what it reminds me of. It's like, oh, the bullet's right here, and you're like,
Yeah, for the layman, right? And I'm not going to pretend that I've done a deep dive into this at all, but the layman's version too is you see Kennedy at some point grab his throat when he gets hit, and the idea was, hey, he got really shot from behind, but it entered in the back and came out through his trachea, and somehow he grabbed his trachea instead of the back of his neck. And I'm like, again, I've never been shot before, definitely haven't been shot in the neck before, but I would think that if I get shot in the back of the neck, that my initial instinct is going to be either to grab the back of my neck or to flinch like with the back versus grabbing my throat. That's just kind of another interesting.
And to Jay's point too, the other thing was like he got off 2 very accurate shots in 6 seconds with a bolt action rifle
while they're driving and he's moving.
Yeah, you got to remember these are not AJ's Benelli, M3s that they're shooting with like semi-automatic. These are literally you shoot one, then you got to rack shit back, and it's like this 1960s, I think it's Russian made.
They were open
rifle.
sights too, weren't they? I think they were open iron sights.
Yeah, they didn't have any red dots. Like that's what AJ uses. That's why he cheats. But he uses red. There's no red dots. He just freaking has to do it.
So I guess where I fall on this is I think there's enough to say like they're definitely withholding some facts, whether or not we've figured out what it is with, it's a second shooter or whatnot. Like that's to me inconclusive, but I do think
that they're withholding because of the CIA involvement more than I think than potentially a second shooter. So those are 2 different things, but
I'll agree.
All right. We're moving along real quick. This one I like because this is a little bit more recent, I'll say, in the sense that people have still been discussing it. Prominent people have been discussing it recently. And that's the fact that the Fort Knox gold reserves have been stolen or have been removed, or basically they're not all there.
That's a fact. That's 100% fact.
Well, okay. I'll let you go first then, Mauricio. Elaborate on that.
Well, it's not that it's 100% fact, but it's like you mentioned it earlier. Somebody mentioned
immediate backtrack.
Maybe it was you, Kyle, that mentioned it with the JFK, but it's like, dude, if it wasn't true, then you would just freaking let people take a look at it, or just, go do an audit, or like, why are they not doing an audit, or why don't they let, somebody go in and take a look? Like
the last major inventory was in 1953.
Right. So that's the whole point. Like, if it really, it's become a major thing, like with, even with Congress folks and audit the Fed and let's do that. And it's like, nobody's been allowed to go down there. Why not?
Mnuchin apparently went down there in 2017 and then tweeted out, "Glad gold is safe," but then didn't elaborate. So,
but I also heard that they didn't see the whole thing. They were allowed to see one room or something with a bunch of gold in there. And of course, nobody can tell if that is real gold, or I actually believe that the gold is there. It's just been leased out. I think it's been leased out. But anyway, I think that's the thing. Why not?
Okay, so when you first said 100% the gold's not there, you were.
I don't think the gold's there. I think it's completely a fake location. If there is, it's a fraction of the gold, just for security sense. It's probably in a bunker in Colorado, and they just say that it's all there and then report it. So that way, if anybody blows it up, right? Or, because too, if you've ever been there, the actual security is shocking at how it's lacking. Like it's, so I think that it's not that we don't have it. I just don't think it's there.
Well, if Jeremy Irons can go in and break in and steal it all, like I feel like anyone could. The one that I found interesting too, if you talk about the lack of transparency, in 1974, they did let a bunch of people in there to go and look at it, but they were only able to see part of it. They only let them in to see part of it instead of like, they're already there. Just let them see it all. You know what I mean? Like it's,
but if you and I are going, like if you, it's not that hard to produce fake gold, especially in bar. I believe they're all kilo bars. So if you had to set it up for journalists to show up or you and me to show up, they can produce a bazillion fake bars. That's not the big deal. But to do an actual audit where somebody's grabbing the bar, weighing it, doing an ultra, whatever the technology is now, they do some ultrasounds or some X-ray stuff to make sure it's gold. Why not? Like, I mean,
apparently they do it. They just don't share it with everyone. Like
why?
They claim that they perform internal audits and verifications.
Why don't they share that?
Internal.
Would you believe them if they did share it, Mauricio? If they came out with a quote unquote an official report that audited and all of the gold is there, not an ounce is missing, would you believe it?
I believe it more than I believe it now.
Would you really?
Depends on who did it.
Yeah.
The U.S. government commissioned an audit team to go in, let's say Doge. They commissioned Doge to go in and do it, and they submitted a report that said every ounce is
I
there.
don't understand why they don't allow Elon Musk with an iPhone to go in there and just video the whole damn thing and say, "Hey, look, here's a goal."
Well, that might be a security risk, like knowing the layout of Fort Knox, I guess. But
I don't know. I think it's sketchy.
I've seen no evidence that makes me question the conventional narrative, so I'm not going to.
You're talking about no evidence to the integrity of the U.S. government? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not. I'm not going to assume that everything the U.S. government says is a lie. I'm not going to assume for just because I want to assume that. I mean, I have no reason to believe that the gold's not there. So,
even though nobody's seen it in 50, 70 years or whatever it is.
I mean, there's a lot of things. Have you seen the Lincoln bedroom? How do you know that the Lincoln bedroom's still in the White House?
Well, I was talking to Obama last week, and he said he slept in the bed. And
well, that's actually a pretty good example because people can visit it and they take pictures of it, right? And so we have lots of photographic evidence. There's lots of people that have been in it.
Yeah, why don't we have why can't I go take a tour of Fort Knox?
well, I assume it's for security reasons. Like they don't want anyone casing the place.
Oh, come on. Do you know how much money they could make in ticket sales?
Yeah.
That'd be a good thing.
You think they could?
Yeah, just let us go and touch the gold. What could be? What could go
What
wrong?
could be wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with me making sure, waiting some of the gold bars.
How's that going to work? By the way, when we get the crypto reserves, like when that happens, right? We're starting to talk about like a national crypto reserve. How do you audit that?
Well, I think that's much easier, isn't it? Like you can, it's all on the blockchain.
You assume it's zero.
It's all on the blockchain. You can see where it is, right?
Audit it.
All right. Anyway, let's move on to a fun one. Bringing back Pizzagate here. There's a so-called global sex trafficking operation backed by the deep state. I'll let AJ roll with this one first.
And can you start by defining deep state just so I know
I thought it was Hollywood, not deep state. But
Yeah. So what is deep state, Kyle?
You want me to define it?
It's not my topic. I didn't say anything.
you wrote it.
This is the deep state is basically this idea that there's very high in society people who aren't politicians. They are just wealthy individuals who are kind of pulling strings, and they have the politicians in their back pocket, and they can kind of do whatever they want because they run shit.
Well, that's already been proven.
Well, so there you go. So that's where this conspiracy theory is, that someone like Jeffrey Epstein's just part of this deep state that runs everything. They get away with everything they want because they
honestly, after him and Diddy, if you are just like, no, that would never happen. I'm kind of like, but it does. This isn't even like, we all know this happens, and they're very powerful people. Like the most powerful.
That said, we could argue, if you're going to use those two as an example, neither of them got away with it.
Well, maybe they pissed off the wrong person though.
How long though? Like decades. And they were doing it. So then what other ones are running that we still haven't caught? And it'll be 2 decades later.
I mean, it's kind of a congruent theory with like the Illuminati thing, where basically there's a group of people above the elected officials that are pulling all the strings. But they don't run out of pizza shop. We did find that. There was in a lot of QAnon, this guy Q was the one who was trying to uproot this whole conspiracy, and that kind of died down. So I don't know. I don't believe there's one group running everything. I do believe that rich people can kind of get away with a lot of things that normal people don't. And there's always going to be weird people with weird things that they're into and illegal things that they're into. And one of those things is going to be sex trafficking. So I don't think it's,
I'm kind of lodge my complaint. I suggested the Clinton, that's a big conspiracy. I didn't even make the list. It's not even the top 100. What happened to my Clinton?
Nobody voted for it.
Didn't even make the list. That's like anyway. I was just gonna say that's a big that's a conspiracy theory. But anyway, yeah.
Everyone in agreement. All right, let's move on now.
That was uninteresting because we all agreed.
I just and we moved on quickly, Jay. It's fine. We're just, like, jeez.
This is a good one.
Everyone's
this
a critic
is
here.
Jay. Kyle, you introduce this topic, and then you and I step aside and let Jay and AJ Osborne duel it out.
Yeah, well, first of all,
we haven't disagreed on anything so far.
Let me give you a little tip here, Jay. I spent an hour putting together this list and then making it so that everyone could vote on it, and then it tallied the votes and then it ranked them all, and like I did this whole thing. like it might behoove you to like encourage that instead of just ripping on the whole process and how it happened. Because now I'm just never going to do it again. And you're going to be going back to Monday night. You're going to be trying to figure out what's going on, what we're doing for topics. And so like, how about you
I'm
just
literally the one that suggested the conspiracy theory episode last week.
We've been talking about that for
right. And I'm literally the one that said, let's do it for episode 100. Then I was literally the one that said, let's do it as a top 10 and start the episode with the top 10. And then you can blame me.
All right, next one.
Next.
Jeez.
But this was also supposed to be the fitness challenge, and Jay, you knocked that one down.
Well, no, this is a perfect timing for this because the three of us agreed on this, and we literally spent days arguing Jay, the three of us, against this because Jay was convinced that a bullet didn't hit Donald Trump's ear. It was something else. It was shrapnel. It was a razor blade. There was no possible way that what hit his ear was a bullet. So Jay, have you changed your mind, or you still believe that that was not a bullet that hit his ear?
I mean, unless he's got this magic regenerating ear that 2 weeks afterwards, where a week afterwards he was wearing a bandage that literally covered up an entire half of his head. And then a week after that, there was zero evidence that he even had a scratch on him. Maybe he regenerates this super quickly, and so he had to go from something covering the whole side of his head to a week later, no evidence. But here's the biggest thing I use to kind of determine if I believe in a conspiracy theory. If I can see something with my own eyes, I'm going to trust my own eyes before I trust anything else, unless I have some reason to believe my eyes are deceiving me.
And so you still believe that it wasn't a bullet?
Even
though the FBI made an official statement that it was a bullet, that doctors all came out and said it was a bullet.
What doctors? Name one doctor.
Fauci came out and said it?
No. There were zero doctors that came out and said it.
But are you saying it was something that nothing hit it? Or wait. Are you saying that nothing hit his ear or not a bullet hit his ear?
I don't I don't know. If he had gone to the hospital or he had an official report from a licensed medical doctor, we'd have some idea.
Every single fact checker from Reuters, from PBS NewsHour, factcheck.org, all of these things ran with your theory and found no evidence that he was injured by anything other than a bullet.
Well, no. The onus is on the opposite of nothing. The opposite. You have to prove that something happened, that he actually got hit by a bullet or something.
So I'm showing a picture of a pretty battered, bloody ear that clearly seems to be injured. Are you saying that was just all a fake or something, or are you saying that was?
Oh no, I've had blood on me just even worse than that, and it wasn't because I was shot. I'm not saying his ear wasn't injured.
He was just picking his nose or something, and then that happened. Like, what caused that?
So the deputy director of the FBI was asked directly about this, and after the reports came in, he said there was absolutely, quote, absolutely no doubt a bullet hit his ear. And this was, and we're not talking about like new FBI director, what's his face that Trump just put in. This was the previous FBI who released that statement.
I thought you were going to trust the government, Jay. I thought whatever the government said, you were trusting.
Again, if I have no better evidence, in this case, I have my own two eyes.
I have visual evidence. I am looking at an ear that has absolutely been hit. Now that could be. I've seen that.
Well, you have evidence that you have evidence that his ear is bleeding.
Let's flip this on the other side. What evidence do you have that it's not?
Yeah.
Why do I need evidence that it's not?
Then why do we need evidence?
No. The evidence I have that it's not is that a bullet hitting the ear would leave some evidence 2 weeks later.
So what am I looking at? Am I looking at ketchup? What am I looking at?
You see my ear here, Jay? You see this? Does that look like a normal ear?
Yes.
Yeah.
I got hit with a puck in this earlobe to the point where two pieces of my ear split. You could see in the middle of my ear, it was flapping, two places like this, just flapping in the wind. And I got the exact same bandaged right up, and now you can't even tell.
Well, how about 2 weeks afterwards? Could you tell?
I'm sure it was like scarred up at that point, but
okay, that's all I'm saying. We're not a year in. Literally 2 weeks afterwards.
I just love how you say the onus is on us to prove that it did happen, even though the prevailing theory, we have a shooter, a dead shooter.
I can say I got shot in the head, but I am so powerful that I was able to regenerate my brain and my head, and there's no evidence of it. Prove that I'm lying.
Well, if we had pictures, reports, and photographic evidence, we could, like we do with Trump.
We don't have any photographic evidence that he was shot by a bullet.
But so what am I looking at when I shared?
I don't know.
Picture?
I picked my nose yesterday, and my nose was bleeding. Just because I have blood doesn't mean that I got shot in the nose with a bullet.
Every single recreation, everything lines up from where the shooter was, where he was standing. Everything works out perfectly.
We have video evidence that shows him when he gets shot, grabbing his ear and them tackling down and him getting up.
We have bullets lodged behind him, hitting people behind him in the exact same direction. I don't know.
But again, 2 weeks later, there was no evidence of it. So what happened in the 2 weeks? Did he just magically
I don't have to explain anything to you. I go to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT says the overwhelming, consistent evidence from FBI reports, medical professionals, congressional testimony, and reputable media confirms a bullet from the shooter was fired. A bullet grazed Trump's right ear. While conspiracy theories circulated online within hours of the event, they contradicted official findings, eyewitness accounts, physical evidence, and unless new substantiated information emerges, the conclusion stands firm.
Right.
So you're going against ChatGPT, Jay.
Great. Well, ChatGPT says that medical professionals, I haven't seen one medical professional, licensed medical professional that examined Trump and has said that. So if you can find me that,
okay.
AJ is Googling it right now. So we'll see what he comes back with.
Okay. So the next one is this is another good one. I'm throwing this one on too because this was a Trump claim. And it actually had a little bit of legs, I thought. So he claimed when he was running and Biden was still in the race that Biden administration was releasing phony unemployment data. And you know how I love phony unemployment data and jobs data. So I don't want to go to Jay right now. He's had the platform for too long. So I'm going to go Mauricio. I was planning on going to Jay, but Mauricio, what do you think about the claim that the government was basically doctoring data?
Yeah, I mean, I want to be fair to the Biden. I mean, I don't know if it's specifically the Biden administration, but the government. I would not trust the government numbers to save my life. So I'm not saying that the Obama numbers are different from the Bush numbers. The Trump's releasing phony numbers. Like I don't believe any of the data that's coming out of the government. So I'm not doing it specifically to Biden. But I mean, we've seen it though. I mean, these revisions just don't make any sense to me. Like, I understand that there are revisions, but the fact that you know this better than I do, Kyle, like how many of the last 15 or 20 revisions have been in the direction that benefits the government? It just doesn't make any sense. If you're looking at statistical deviation, you would think, I don't know, 50% would go one way, 50, like if you're going to mess up the numbers, you'll screw it up half of the time one way or 60-40 but not 95-5. So statistically, I think it's improbable that these misses are statistically relevant. I think there's got to be some intentionality to it.
I think it's more so it was an election cycle, and so it was very cherry-picked data, and they were using creative language in order to get it, and they were taking data from this spot and taking data from this spot and cherry-picking stuff. And so if you put them together, it doesn't really add up. But one of the quotes that was used was Biden referred to 18 million people out of work. And we all know Biden wasn't completely there. And when they looked into it, what he meant was.
What do you mean by that, Kyle? What do you mean by not completely there?
Well, it's just he was probably misremembering stuff. He's old.
He didn't know where he was at or who people were.
And so he's given a stat, and he doesn't say it exactly the way they want. And when you're cherry picking data, you kind of have to be very exact on the way you say it. So when you say 18 million people at work, what he actually meant was 18 million people receiving unemployment benefits. And there's a distinction there, because if you say 18 million people out of work and then you follow up and start talking about the unemployment rate, people start doing math and they're like, wait, this math isn't mathing. And so I think it was more so a combination of, as you said, they had just released that yearly revision that was, like a million people or whatever.
It was the largest revision of any president ever
in history. And and it was a bit of cherry picking and creative wording on certain things of, okay, you can say unemployment, you could say people out of work, you can say, you can discount people who aren't looking for work, except and or choose to count it. I think it was just a little bit of, and then you add on top of, Biden has been known to misspeak a little bit on things, and so I don't think they were purposely trying to phony the data. I think it just came out that way in a combination of misspeaking and cherry picking.
Jay, I want to hear Jay's thoughts.
You sure?
Look, he's so grumpy because I had to cut him off from his rant about the thing.
Now he's begging to be called on.
I don't care. Look,
You don't care about our listeners, Jay? You don't care about our listeners?
You started this with the Biden administration fabricated employment data, and then you said Biden said this. So am I talking about, should we trust the words that Biden said, or should we trust the data that came out of the Bureau of Labor Statistics under the Biden administration? Because I don't trust the words that Biden said. I wouldn't trust any president talking about economics unless they have an economics degree, and none of them have. So
Actually, if they had an economics degree, it'd probably be worse.
I know. I'd trust them a lot less if they did. they would tell us that the internet is going to be the same as a fax machine. As Paul
but saying that like the data was fabricated and then the example you use is something that came out of Biden's mouth. Yeah, I don't trust a word that Biden said because I don't think he had any idea what he was talking about or what was going on. But that's different than the data that came out of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Now, to AJ's point about last year being the largest revision downward of any year in history, the last report came out and basically implied that the annual revision that's getting ready to come out is going to be even larger than last year. So now we have to ask ourselves the question, is this conspiracy, if you believe it's a conspiracy, extends past Biden and also into Trump, is Trump's administration.
How could the annual one come out when we haven't even had a year? That's for 2024.
No, it doesn't go. It's not January to January. So if you recall, the last one came out in July.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. We had it at a year. Wouldn't it be?
It's March to March.
March to March. So that's still most 2024. That's only 3 months of this year.
Yeah, but Trump is now in office, and I assume that he would have rooted this out if the Bureau of Labor Statistics was fabricating data. I assume that we would have found this out by now and we would have rectified it, or there would be some at least knowledge and reporting to the U.S. public that there's been fraud going on in our data sources. And so the fact that we haven't had that tells me that I'm long story short, again, I have no reason not to trust basically independent third-party economists. There are too many people that would have to be involved in this cover-up from both sides of the aisle. So if you look at the economists at the BLS, I promise you they're not all Biden or all Trump. So all it would take is, if you think this is a Biden conspiracy, all it would take is one right-wing economist to blow the whistle. Versus the other way around, if you thought that it was Trump that was fabricating data and there was a single liberal economist there, all it would take would be that one liberal economist to blow the whistle. So you're basically you want to believe that 100% of these non-political economic hires are willing to go along with this fraud. And I simply don't believe that 100% of any large group of people who don't have some motivation, some common motivation, are going to all agree on something. And so
that's a good example, though. That is a great. I don't disagree with that, but I think that applies to all these conspiracy theories. Like, in fact, that's one of the reasons most conspiracy theories to me don't
not
work.
all of them.
But like the JFK one, like you'd have to have, unless they got killed off, to Kyle's point. But like you'd have to say, like, it's been like, almost 100 years, well, not 100, but like 70 years or whatever the number is since this has happened. Like there's still people who are alive that they're on their deathbed, like, and nobody says something to like, hey, I was a shooter, or my dad was a shooter, or my uncle. Like all of these have that element of.
Well, but here's the difference. And I think your JFK example is a good one. For something like the JFK example, you have two things at work. One, it could have been a very, very small group of people. It could have been 3, 4, 5 people. So it's a lot easier to keep a secret between 5 people than it is to keep a secret between 100 or 1,000 people. Number two, I'm talking about JFK right now. We can talk about COVID in a second. And then the second thing is, let's say it was a group of 5 or 10 people. All 5 or 10 of those people have a common motivation. They all work for the CIA or the FBI or some organization who agreed that the goal was to kill Kennedy. We don't have that with the BLS. We don't have a group of economists that all are aligned with some motivation to lie to the American people. So you can't, I don't think the two are equivalent. You have too many people and you have no alignment and motivation. And so when you don't have those two things, you're going to have at least one person that's going to stand up and say, hey, I've got to call bullshit on this.
But I think that falls apart when you look at COVID completely.
Or what about when how many
Are you
people?
saying nobody has stood up and called out COVID as being a lie?
Well, we'll move on to COVID, but how many people were there involved and checking on and looking at Trump's ear? No one's called bullshit on that one either.
I think it's been a very small group. Again, AJ, did your Googling turn up a single licensed medical doctor who examined Trump?
I wasn't Googling.
Why would anyone need to check on a scratch? All right, let's move on next. We're not going to go right to COVID.
I don't even see COVID on this list.
Do we want to hit on that? I put it the Wuhan lab one down there, but only me and AJ voted for it, so it wasn't going to make the list.
Because now it's like an official fact from like the whatever.
Well, so
all the different lies with COVID that came out.
The prevailing theory now it's shifted to inconclusive, but the prevailing theory that most people still believe is the wet market story, where it was moved from a
magical bat swung in through the air. They happen to have this one virus from the lab next door.
Yeah, and then it
naturally
went
in the wild.
The Velociraptor, and then somehow it connected with Ernie, and then it swung by Ernie, and then it was like a whole thing.
Exactly.
So this is classic Occam's razor. If you have two versions of the same story, you pick the one that's simpler. And when the two versions there happened to be this lab that studies pandemics right where this happened, or you have like this 1 in a billion chance that this mutation in an animal that happened to bite a human that happened to occur right next to that lab. You pick the simpler story.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, and I think the kicker is basically that it happened in China, and they're going to do everything they can to try and cover up. They're going to put every report out to suggest that it wasn't them.
Now that said, I mean, you really wanted to argue that you have to trust the government when it came to Trump's ear. So maybe we have to trust the government with COVID too.
Well, the government's now come out and told us no. And so I think there's a few things too, specifically why COVID is such a good example of all conspiracies. So the amount of lies which were institutionalized, basically. You had masks don't work, right? That was stated, don't get masks, they don't work. You had the virus didn't come from a lab, of course. But then you have, if you're vaccinated, you can't get COVID. And then you have the school closures were number one spreaders. That came out 3 years later, completely false. Like completely false. Nobody even knows where they got the data from. Natural immunity doesn't count. Like you need to get the vaccine because natural immunity is not going to cover it. And then you had the key to all of these, right? Even the ivermectin and that stuff where they censored at mass. And so like most of these were considered fringe, crazy beliefs, and get deplatformed for even talking about them, where it was known within the government.
My problem with it wasn't that they were wrong. It's that they completely disregarded the option that they could be wrong. Like if you had come out and said, hey, let's distance 6 feet because we don't know for sure, but based off of how these things have acted before and like whatever, it'd be a safe practice for us to do 6 feet. We don't know, but we're going to try. Or like based off of how similar things have acted, let's wear masks. It could help. It's, and we're going to try everything we can to try and get everything back to normal as quick as possible. But instead, to JJ's point, they said, this is what's going to fix it. This is how we're going to do it. They said it was definitively, and anybody who questioned it, they censored and they basically ostracized. And to me, that was the issue. It's not that you're wrong. Like, you're allowed to be wrong. You're moving. It was a very fluid situation, and you're trying to act quickly, and you're trying to limit deaths.
But I think here's another example. Another example. This one particularly is another example of just follow the money, right? I mean, you've got all the pharmaceutical who made billions and billions and billions of dollars. They're lobbying, right? They are lobbying their people. They're paying their people to push narrative, because obviously the pharmaceutical companies are going to make a lot of money when they can say, hey, you've got to take this vaccine. This is the only one that's approved. It's the only one that works. This is the way we do it. Forget about this horse wormer. Forget this ivermectin, which might work just as well, but it only costs $1 and nobody's going to make any money. That, I think, is what really corrupted a lot of people.
But getting back to the origins, though, like the one thing that really stuck out to me is that they couldn't identify the intermediate host, and like every other scenario of these similar outbreaks, they figured it out within a month who the intermediate host was, and they couldn't produce it. And you know that China would have been probably murdering people to figure this out, so that they could prove that it wasn't a Wuhan thing, if it actually, or a Wuhan lab, and they couldn't produce it. And to me, that was kind of the nail in the coffin.
Well, that, and then you have the whole problem with the foundational evidence and everything around. So we're going to basically cover it up. And if you say it as that's racist, right? No, that's not how this works, because it came from China. That's somehow now wrong to say. And then also the numbers were literally wrong. So the death rate, for example, of 3%, the government knew that was wrong, and they knew the reports were wrong. And they issued lockdowns and guidances off of it, even after who had produced that, along with the CDC, knew that not only was it wrong, it was wildly wrong. Like, not even close.
And Kyle, you're trying to get back off of going back to the origin story, but I've always thought, like, I mean, this is a legit question to you guys. Like, why does it matter so much where it, like, whether it's a Wuhan lab or was a 1 in a million? Like, at the end of the day, it happened. Like, to me, I was more concerned about the reaction to, okay, now it happened, now what? Versus, does it really matter whether it was in a lab? I mean, obviously we want to prevent it in the future and we can do some safety stuff, but at the end of the day, that's a less interesting story to me versus what happened after the thing got released. That was more,
because we're talking conspiracy theories. That's why it's interesting.
Yeah, I think you're attributing too much to malice and not enough to stupidity. I mean, if all this was true, I mean, if Trump and his administration really knew that the government was lying to people about the death rate, and they were lying to people about the vaccine, and they were lying to people, I mean, basically that's Trump and the administration committing crimes against humanity. And I just don't believe that's the case.
I think it's the same as the jobs in. It's shit in, shit out, right? Like, they get data coming in, and so what comes out when they
I believe that 100%, but that's different than what AJ's saying, which was they were intentionally lying to us. I believe
right, let's go back to another fun one. Like, we had a couple serious ones, let's have another fun one. So what do you guys think about the theory that aliens exist, and not only do they exist, that they have visited planet Earth? Mauricio, what do you got?
We're not talking about the OZ, the Oz, the mentalist. That's different. That's a different topic with aliens.
Yes, that's different.
Okay. I am definitely not a believer that aliens exist among us.
Among us or at all?
At all is tough, because the places that we live in a pretty big place. So at all is different, but the fact that they have somehow arrived and approached us, like all these UFOs, which, by the way, are just unidentified flying objects, they're not aliens, but that they've actually made it here, and they've managed to elude us. So there's some conspiracy cover up that they're really here, but we aren't told. That's the part I don't believe. Is it possible? There are some species, and let's define alien, somewhere out in the universe? 100%. That's possible. But the fact that they're here with advanced technology and somehow we don't see them, but they are spying on us or maybe even among us, I'm out.
I can't rule out the two. If I have one, you have to have the possibility.
That's exactly what I was just going to say, AJ. If you believe that they exist, then who's to say what stage along the evolutionary train, technology, all of these different things, where they are. If they exist, they could be, prehistoric, and they could be, single cell amoebas. They could be anything, or they could be all the way up to the point of, a million years past us, evolutionary wise. And then who knows what that's going to look like. So if you believe that it's possible that aliens exist, I think you have to consider the possibility that we are no more than ants to this alien race. And so,
or the possibility that the only reason we're here is because of aliens, as in it literally came from other places, right? So the microbiology and the things that came to be here on Earth is a combination, right, of lots of different rocks, asteroids, and material around space that probably came somewhere else. So,
but you're arguing. I agree with that. Like, I do believe that it's possible there's some kind of life form. Like, but it could be like literally an amoeba. It could be a worm. I mean, it doesn't have to be like a full human or something equivalent or beyond. So you're saying that the part that I'm having a hard time, and I'm up for being convinced otherwise. I'm not. To be honest with you, I haven't put that much thought into it. But if you have some kind of species that's out there that somehow has even come within the close proximity of the Earth, where we have like the Hubble telescope and we can be looking, we literally have the ability now to seek, I mean, I don't even know how many light years out there. Like, we're not just looking at Mars and our galaxy. I mean, we were able to.
It's minuscule compared to the vastness of the galaxy, though.
Right. I mean, that's the part that's fast. The parts that fascinate to me is when you look at our galaxy in relation to the entire universe. It's like to your point, it's like we're an ant when it comes to the universe. So, but the idea that some other ant or ant times 1,000 or exponential is somewhere else out there and is able to come anywhere near our world without us seeing it, unless you're going to say that's a conspiracy. Like, we've seen them, they're there, and somehow we're all keeping it under wraps so nobody else. That would be the conspiracy to me. Like, and because I just don't see a world where people can even come close to 1 million light years from us in the, a bazillion galaxies away, and we're not going to see them.
I mean, you're assuming that they're the same makeup carbon-based beings that we are.
Yes, I'm not. Yes, if there is some kind of spirit that came from Costco, I'm out.
Jay, you're being quiet again. Whenever we disagree with Jay on something, he just gets grumpy and sits in the corner up here and just doesn't say anything.
No, I agree with Mauricio. I mean, first of all, I don't see how this is a conspiracy theory. I mean, we're asking, conspiracy implies that somebody is covering up the truth. If we want to talk about, like, are there aliens in Area 51 that the government is keeping from us? That's a conspiracy theory. But do aliens exist?
Now you're arguing semantics about the format of this thing. It's an interesting discussion.
But to his point, like, we know we've seen. Like, my issue is we would have seen them. We're saying we've seen them. The telescopes have identified them, but we're keeping it under wraps so nobody else can find out.
Okay, there's a testimony by David Grush, former U.S. intelligence officer, testified in front of Congress in 2023, claiming that the U.S. holds and retrieved non-human craft, possibly biologics. Okay, so there's a conspiracy then. He claims that we are actually holding evidence that aliens do exist. There you go. Conspiracy theory, Jay. Now can we talk about it?
Sure, we can talk about that, but that's different than do aliens exist?
Why?
Because a conspiracy theory is there is a right answer. The question is, do we know what it is? And or somebody knows what somebody has the information. Are we being lied to? And so the whole, are aliens out there?
And so now we're discussing the possibility of either side, which would lead to a conclusion of whether or not we believe this guy could be hiding from us.
I think the government absolutely has information on alien life that they're holding. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means that they're aliens like we think in Hollywood, anything else like that. But I believe they have unidentified objects or whatever that we don't know about, that they're doing tests on, that they're learning about. I think that's absolutely probably true to a degree. I don't know if they're like aliens like Hollywood saying anything of that. Is it, bacteria? Is it, I don't know.
It's
But yes, I think we do.
2025, and they still have 143 unexplained reports from actual military operations of unidentified objects that they can't explain what happened or the movements or anything.
You guys saw, I'm going to look it up real quick because I remember reading about the military admitting that that was a misinformation campaign, that they were trying to do something or other. So you guys talk and I'll find that for you.
I haven't heard that.
So I guess let me start with, sure, I assume that there is life out there somewhere, probably a whole lot of it. I mean, statistically speaking, it would be improbable that there's not a whole lot of life out there. The question is, like, is it coming here and hanging out and not really making itself known, but also not doing a good job of covering its own tracks? And then sometimes it can travel like however many hundreds or millions of light years, but then when it gets here, it just crashes for some reason, and they can't keep from crashing on our planet. I don't know. That all seems a little far-fetched to me. Like, is it possible? Obviously, it's possible. But I mean, if it goes to, I have two stories to believe. One, aliens are not visiting us, or two, they are visiting us. They're not doing a good job of hiding their trails, but they're doing a good enough job that we can't prove it. But they also are, despite their immense technology, crashing into our planet, and we're recovering bodies. I'm going to go with the simpler story in my mind, which is no, they're not visiting us.
I think the problem is the government covered things up about it. So, as in, we had reports from the military, things like that. They lied, said that they didn't. Then, 50 years later came back, okay, we absolutely did. And I think that's where it starts to go, okay, obviously the government lies. But when you look at it, that fuels a lot of this. Because then they go, but what we've recovered in both the evidence, things like that, it's not full on. There's some videos. We're going to show you some of them, but we have a lot more we're not going to go into. And so it leaves this open-ended question of then what do you have, right? And why are you keeping it secrets? And why'd you lie about it?
Yeah, so I looked it up real quick, and that's what I remember, is that the military runs super secretive operations all the time. They've got new technology that they're testing out. And so a lot of times people see that, and it starts as a rumor that they're UFOs, and the military has admitted that they will let that rumor spread because they want to make people divert that, yes, somebody said it was a UFO. Sure, like, I don't know. What they're really trying to hide.
Because otherwise they have to come out and say, no, it wasn't a UFO. It's this technology that we've created that you wouldn't even believe.
Yeah, this is top secret technology. Yeah, this is top secret technology that the military is experimenting with. And we don't want anybody to know. And we're flying over Nevada. We're flying over Arizona. And so when people say, oh, I saw a UFO, what they really saw was a top secret military operation they didn't want you to see. And so like, yeah, I don't know. Like, maybe we've seen some UFOs too.
The military.
Yeah, so that's what I was just going to say. You're talking about civilian sightings. There's 143 military recorded sightings that are credible, sensor verified sightings by trained military personnel that they can't explain what happened.
So I don't find it hard to believe that other parts of the military that they are not associated with has technology that they don't even disclose to their pilots.
But they have videos of it. So if that was true, though, I think they would not release the videos of their weapons, things like that. They'd be like, you're not releasing those. Like, you're literally releasing footage, right? So I think that's why I'm like,
I think it's to Mauricio's point. They release the footage and just say, look, we don't know what that is. Use your imagination. We wouldn't release it if we knew what it was, and we knew that it was our own technology that we don't ever want the Russians to know about. We wouldn't release it. So the fact that we're releasing it, you have to trust us that we really have no idea what it is.
But they are lying, because a UFO is an unidentified flying object. They know what it is. It's like, if it's their military stuff, then they're specifically lying.
Oh, of course.
You guys okay with me skipping 9/11 was an inside job?
Sure.
Let's skip past that.
I'm
curious. Are we going to talk about Dr. Oz?
Who thinks it was an inside job? I won't say anything. I'm just curious.
I don't.
Neither do
I don't.
Okay.
Do you, Jay?
Once again, I think any inconsistencies can just be chalked up to fog of,
That's one of
that-
those. There would have to be too many people involved, like literally hundreds or thousands of people,
I agree with that,
and
Jay.
not a single one of them
100%.
has yet come out to say, "Hey, let me tell you my role in this."
yeah. Most of the stuff that I saw was just they never even considered the fact that this could happen, and so it was. I don't want to use the word incompetence, but it was just.
Yeah, you could probably convince me that the government had an idea that something like this was going to happen, and they let it happen. I'm not saying that's the case, but I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. That to some degree they knew that.
I think it was just a bit of hubris that they. All right. I do want to touch on quickly, even though Jay's never heard of him, Oz the Mentalist. If we want to talk about the evidence that aliens might walk amongst us, I'm not saying he is an alien, but I think he needs to be like, we need to pay more attention to him. Hit the superpowers that this guy has. He's abnormal. He's not human. And he needs to be stopped in some way, because at the moment he's only using this to like read people's PIN codes for their banks and do funds and predict Final Fours and stuff like that. But the abilities that he has, if he wanted to turn evil, he could take over the world. So I just think we need to talk about this, and he needs to be on some
you
sort
don't
of
think
list.
he's like an illusionist? I mean, if he really had that mental ability, he would be a trillionaire. He would be able to predict the stock market. He'd be able to predict the price of gold, the price of equities.
He made $10 million last year just in appearance fees. So I think he's doing okay.
But why appearance fees? I could just bet on whoever is going to win the NCAA.
Maybe because he
Final Four.
loves it. He loves the feeling of walking up to you saying, "Hey, what's your PIN code?" asking you 3 questions and then telling you what it is. He loves the shock on your face. I just think the things that he can do, if he decided to use this for evil, I think he needs to be on a list. I think it's like an Avengers thing where he needs to be registered as a superhero, and they need to know where he is at all times. Maybe put like a bell on him.
Why don't you tell people who this guy is? Like half the people listening don't even know who you're talking about.
Just go look him up. You don't have to look up Oz the Mentalist and look up some of the shit that he does. He was on. Most people know him because he was on Rogan. If you watch any sports, NFL, he does stuff like that where he goes into NFL teams and he blows their minds. He's been around for a little while now, so if you just go Google him, it's worth it. You'll spend an hour watching this guy, and you'll just be blown away.
Are you his agent? Are you his official agent? Do you get paid a commission on?
No, anybody who knows me, I'm a natural skeptic. So when he first came out, I'm like, this guy's he's pre-researching all these people. He'll ask like, okay, think of your first crush. And I'm like, okay, he has he just has a really good research team. He's looking at this. And I was a skeptic for him until now. He's done like 1,000 different, he's done this 1,000 times and no one has come out and been able to explain it.
Let me give you a rational explanation off the top of my head. I haven't even thought about this. And then it just occurred to me. This is one explanation so you can stop putting your mom on a pedestal. I've definitely seen a lot of folks that can tap into that can break into your computer, they can literally steal your password. They can go, like, it's not that hard for you to get a PIN code. Like if I followed you with the right person, it's not that hard for me to get your PIN code by just using technology, right? So then I can use okay, I'm going to go on the Joe Rogan show, big deal. Let me have one of my guys follow Joe Rogan. When he goes to the ATM machine, he enters his PIN, or he's on his computer, and we can map all of his keystrokes, and we get his PIN, and so then that gets communicated to me, and then I show up to Joe Rogan, like, oh, Joe Rogan, and then I put it on the show. There's so many people that can steal your PIN code that then the next iteration, if you can believe that,
you got Mauricio, you got to look him up. It's not like he's a one-trick pony. Like he will literally, I just think he's so good at so many different things where he obviously does like the whole the suggestive, he forces you to think things too. He's really good at that, and he's really good at reading you. And I think it's just, and I'm sure he has an excellent research team as well. And I think it's just a whole combination of that, because you look at he'll be like, okay, I want you to think of anybody in this room, and he gives them a football, and he's like, throw it to anyone in this room. And then he'll write down who he's going to throw to it. And there was one where Joe Burrow he was going to hand it off to the person next to him, and then threw it to a guy. And he had literally written down, he's going to fake it to this, and then he's going to throw it to him. how could he possibly?
But it's like these all you've heard, I mean, there was a time not like illusionists were a big, like David Kopp would be like, oh my God, how did they do this? There's an explanation for it. It doesn't have to be he doesn't have to be an alien in order for that to happen.
Just watch him, Mauricio, and
All I
then
know is if I had supernatural powers, card tricks would definitely be like how I would spend my time.
oh, he doesn't do card tricks anymore. I mean, he probably pulls it out every once in a while, but now he just blows people's mind by like.
Yeah, why isn't he winning the World Series of Poker when he can just read everybody's mind and can read their cards?
That's my point, Mauricio. What is more fun, beating somebody in that, or like constantly just making someone who's someone like Joe Rogan was a skeptic? He thought, you could tell by Joe Rogan's how he acted after, that he thought he was going to beat Oz the Mentalist and this was going to be his thing, and Oz still got him. So that's probably what he gets off on is just blowing.
But why don't
people's
you
minds.
make the $1 billion first and then do that?
I'm not going to act like I know the mind of him, because like obviously I don't, and no one does. No one can figure him out. Anyway, we can move on. CJ, was an interesting conversation. Other people cared.
No, that's it. I didn't say no for that one. I didn't say I didn't care. I just didn't know who the guy was.
All right, next one.
But here, let me give you an idea. If you want to figure out like what he's doing, I would probably start with doing some research on neuro-linguistic programming.
That's part of it, I think, but not all of it. I think he's just he combines all of the different ones all together, and he's just very good at it.
Including
okay,
hackers, including
should we talk about vaccines causing autism? I think we agree that vaccines don't cause autism, but I also thought it was an interesting discussion because we do have a little bit of vaccines causing other effects in this group, and I think that's worth the discussion. So I don't know if Mauricio, you want to start before we go to the
first of
closer
all,
with AJ.
I'm not even convinced. I mean, you made that as an absolute statement. I'm not sure I would agree with that 100%. But what's interesting though, here's what this is actually a different. It's part of the conspiracy theory, but it's something that's very interesting to me. Is like there's clearly something going on. Like there's something clear. There's an increase in autism. There's an increase in all of these other things, cancers, all whatever, and it all happened at a particular inflection point. And so the question is, if it's not the vaccines, is it something in our food? Is it something in the environment? Is it the cell phones? Is it the Bluetooth? Like, what is it that's causing this spike? And
what's causing is they started tracking it.
But that's my point. Like, but that's not. I don't think that's entirely true. But to my point is like everybody gets defensive on this, and nobody seems curious enough to say, okay, well, that's fine, but like, what is that? What it is? Is it really just that people started tracking it, or
no, I don't understand. Like, go out and look at the science. There's lots of great science around. There was an article that I was reading 3 days ago about new scientific evidence that there are certain types of lipids that live on the umbilical cord of pregnant women whose kids end up being autistic, and they basically track it down to certain microbiomes in the mothers. So basically you have bacteria that live in your gut that cause different types of fats to build up in the womb and on the umbilical cord, which basically impacts all the food that's getting to the baby. And there's a very high percentage of these lipids on the umbilical cords of babies that have a much higher chance of being autistic when they grow up. I think I don't see why that's hard to believe. Basically, our diets have gotten much crappier over the last 40 years. And so our gut biomes have changed over the last 40 years. And we have a lot of moms who are just passing bad bacteria and gut biomes to their kids, and it's impacting their brains.
Well, the autism thing too, it started, in my opinion, just strictly because the symptoms of autism start showing right around the same times that kids start getting vaccines, like the same age group, the same whatever. So like it's the whole correlation versus causation thing. It was more of a correlation thing, and then obviously it was that one study by that doctor that was eventually
I think that's been
discredited,
that's been debunked or whatever. But to me, and I understand why they did it. This is more of a legal thing, but I know why they did it. But then you can't just ignore that fact, right? So the fact is that I think it was 1986, right? The vaccine company, the pharmaceutical companies got immunity from prosecution of any injuries that were caused by their product. And that made sense. It makes sense to a point where like, well, this is good for the society. We want to create these vaccines, but there are some side effects. There are some people that are going to get injured. All these lawsuits that are happening and all these punitive damages cases are hindering that. It's a chilling effect on the production of these vaccines that we want. So let's pass a law that basically protects these pharmaceutical companies from liability if they in fact do that. And of course, what happens is you have these unintended consequences that now that these pharmaceutical companies have no liability potentials, now there's this unintended consequence that now profits over-index the safety requirements. And
well, it also led to 3-year process.
Let me finish. And the fact that if you look at a graph and you look at not just autism, but a lot of these diseases, and you look at the inflection point that happened around 1986, it's understandable why you have these conspiracy theories, is because it just seems to coincide with when the vaccine creators got this legal immunity to not be able to be prosecuted if their product caused harm.
Yeah, and to me, that's I don't know what's behind that, but that to me is very similar to Good Samaritan laws. You create a product that is going to help 99% of people. It's going to kill 1% of people, and you want to protect the companies that are making that product because ultimately they're doing more good than they're doing damage. No different than Good Samaritan laws, where if you see somebody like dying on the street and you go to give them CPR and you end up like killing them accidentally because you don't really know how to do CPR, but you're doing your best to help them. In many states, you're protected.
That doesn't mean that your crappy CPR didn't cause the death. It was a decision from society that said we are okay with that because the overall beneficial overcomes the whatever the negative.
It's also, Mauricio, there's also the effect of that's why it takes 3 years to pass a drug, right? Because they had the foresight of saying, hey, we don't, just because these people are immune to prosecution, we don't want them just rushing out every drug. Now we have to take this rigorous three-step process that takes years and years. So
kind of like COVID. We're kind of like COVID, where it took decades to produce the COVID vaccines.
Well, okay, that was emergency. I'm saying most processes take 3 years, where like theoretically we could have the cure for cancer, but it's not going to be accessible until 3 years later.
I know, but but the conspiracy theory I think would be more like, why not say that? Like, hey, look, we understand and appreciate that this is going to negatively affect a minority, a vast majority. Maybe it's 1%, maybe it's 5%, maybe it's 10% of the population. It obviously varies from death.
They do say that.
Minor injury, whatever. But like, this doesn't cause that. But no, they're saying it doesn't cause it. I'm saying it causes it, but we're okay with that because
it doesn't cause it. If you read the insert on a vaccine, it lists all the potential side effects.
So the vaccine says it potentially can cause autism?
No, because I don't think there's any studies that say it does.
I'm saying, why not say, look, it potentially can cause autism, but it's such a small percentage that we think the benefit outweighs whatever damage it does, and so we're good with
because there's no evidence that it does. So why should they say it if there's no evidence that it does?
Well, there's a correlation evidence. Like
there's lots of correlations everywhere. Does that doesn't mean so? Actually, Mauricio,
no. Even correlations, Jay. Even correlations, they have to list. So my wife used to run clinical trials. She was a director of global clinical trials in back in her previous job. And even if someone got some sort of sickness or whatever that was completely unrelated to taking that vaccine or that whatever they were doing the trial on, they have to list it as a possible side effect, even though plausible, like they know this person went over here and got this sickness from this place and had nothing to do with it. They have to list it as a possible side effect. So they do list absolutely everything as possible side effects.
But then every time somebody has this side effect that's not listed, and they it doesn't really cause it. It was just happenstance that you took the particular vaccine and you got that injury. But that we're going to ignore that. That's the cover. I think that's the conspiracy cover up. Instead of saying, yeah, it's possible that caused it, but that's a price we're willing to pay. The narrative is no, it doesn't cause it at all. Just kind of like cigarettes don't cause
the real problem here is vaccine mandates. So if that is true, then, why in the world as society do we allow vaccine mandates? And you say, oh, it's because the greater good. Okay, well, if that's true, young men under the age of 35, death per 1 million is 10 to 20 from COVID, okay? It is 30 to 60 vaccine injuries and hospitalization. So if you take out comorbidities just normal going people, it is 10 to 20 versus vaccine injuries 30 to 60. You are more likely, and we're more likely to develop GBS than you were to die or be hospitalized from COVID, yet they were mandating it.
Yeah.
That is terrifying to think about. As in, there is such a slight chance that you would have ever died from COVID. It's less than these alternatives, which are horrifying. And they mandated and told everybody any information against vaccines is wrong. In fact, even mentioning it, you'd be taken off online platforms. You were labeled. I mean, there was a concerted
and they thought they were doing what's good. And the problem is that in hindsight, I think they did more harm than good. Because now the next time that this happens, no one's going to listen to them.
But that's why I don't think that this is an interesting conspiracy theory. If you can admit they thought they were doing what was right, then they made a mistake. They screwed up. They were idiots. Even maybe they were even negligent.
To not even allow the possibility that they could be wrong.
Right? They could be negligent. But that's different.
The next time, why would you let these idiots do it?
It's billions and billions of dollars. They won the freaking golden lottery. The government is going to force everyone to buy our products and pay for it. That is the ultimate ticket. So they went, not only did they lobby, those guys, they went around, they backed up studies that they knew were false. The government knew the studies were false for over a year, but they said releasing this information will not make it so we can get everybody vaccine. And so they withheld it from the public. That's not conspiracy theories. That's true. So it's like, I think the conspiracy theory around vaccine, what happens is now you go, if you're lying to us about this openly, like it's not even in question, then why would we say, but you're not lying to us about this?
It's a whole legal premise too, where like when a bunch of people accuse somebody of doing something wrong and you can pick out one person who's lying, then all of a sudden everyone assumes that everyone's lying. And that's the problem that's going to get in. If you lie about one thing that's big enough on this, they're going to assume every single thing that you're in is lying.
So like it was institutionalized, put into motion. I mean, even Facebook came out and everything and fully admitted we were lied to. We were lied to, and nobody got in
I have
trouble.
nothing against Facebook. It wasn't really their fault. Like they kind of had to do it, right?
They had to do it. The Biden administration was literally threatening them.
And that's to go to both AJ's and Jay's point, which is, hey, if you acknowledge, like, hey, look, the risk, whatever the risk is, it's small, it's minute, it's you know what the risks are of taking something that may be a 1 in a million, 1 in a bazillion, 1 in 1,000, 100, but you get to make that decision, right? You get to decide whether that's a risk that you're willing to take or not, or you have that discussion with your medical provider and you say, yeah, there's a risk of doing this, but the risk of not doing that is higher, or the risk of not doing that is lower. Let's make this decision. And when you start mandating that, it becomes an issue.
But I keep hearing mandates, but there are millions of people out there that never got vaccinated for COVID. Isn't that true?
And they got fired. You couldn't travel. I had to get a fake vaccine card to go into anywhere in New Orleans or travel. Well, I got deplatformed.
Those are private businesses. I mean, they're allowed to do what they
Government entities, absolutely not. You had to show your vaccine cards. Like the vaccine mandates of employment, which was mandated by the government. The government put pressure. This was from the top. This wasn't like individual businesses are like, no, the government made businesses do it.
Businesses weren't allowed to open unless they followed the mandate.
So you're saying that Trump and Biden conspired with these vaccine companies?
Trump didn't have any mandates. That came under Biden.
Well, he was the one that developed the vaccine. I mean,
yeah, he developed the vaccine, luckily, but no, it was under Biden that we got the mandates and the lockdowns.
Okay, so under both administrations, I mean, there was these cover-ups.
No, I don't think it was a cover-up.
I think people are idiots. There's negligence. But that's different than
they overplayed their hand. I don't think it was cover-ups. I thought it was they would get preliminary information and they would act like it's the law and that they know when just the
And
whole
even when
premise
they knew it was opposite.
Right.
Into 2021, this is well into now Biden's administration, when we had all the information, lockdowns went on for 2 years. And they were censoring people even after they knew. They locked down.
Well, lockdowns were at the state level. I live in Florida. We didn't have lockdowns. So
Yeah, thank goodness
I
for
live in
those
California.
states.
We didn't have
Me too.
lockdowns.
So I don't think we should be blaming either Trump when most of the lockdowns were or Biden.
Yeah, this did cross a little bit on
Yeah,
both.
we don't get over
to
it. Are we
political
going to
on
do a
it.
top 10, Kyle, or what's going on?
Well, no. So I want
we're
to do
done?
two quick ones real quick because I thought this one was interesting. The whole the chem clouds, condensation trails are full of chemicals that scientists and governments are seeding into the atmosphere. Yes, it's I don't believe that's happening right now, but at the same time, I do believe it's a possibility that they're going to use in the future because it's been floated as something to prevent or to help rectify climate change. And that's how they're going to do it is they're going to release chemicals through chemtrails and stuff. And so the fact that they've already talked about it, they've discussed it, there's been patents about it. I don't see it as something that is that implausible that's going to happen in the future. That's one.
And again,
thing.
that's where and I don't, I don't have enough info to know whether it's true or not. But if it is true, then it goes back to this mandate. Like you're mandating that because obviously those chemicals get released, they got to fall down to the ground. It's not like they just stay in the air. So they do get, consumed by everyone. It's like, okay, you're forcing a chemical for me to take, even if I don't want to take it or disagree with it.
I mean, they already do it for clouds. Like if for in specialized areas, they will go and seed clouds with planes in order to.
That happens all the time. They see
They've been
clouds.
they've been doing it for 60 years.
Yeah, all the time.
So the fact that it's never going to happen, I think it will.
I guess when I think about conspiracy theories here, like when I hear about the COVID vaccine, when I think conspiracy theory, I think somebody's out there purposely trying to kill people with the vaccine. They purposely designed it in a way that people are going to die. That's the conspiracy theory that you hear. Or the
that's not the conspiracy. No, that's not the conspiracy theory.
I've never heard that.
You've never heard that, like,
no, the conspiracy theory is, hey, this is the only vaccine that works, so you got to buy our product and all this other data that we
AJ,
know.
You've never heard the conspiracy theory that, like,
vaccines are killing people? The government put vaccines to kill people?
Like intentionally?
Yeah, the deep state was am I the only one that's heard this?
Oh, like population control, like a population control. Yeah, I have heard the population control argument.
I heard the microchips, but I didn't hear that they were doing it to kill people.
I've heard, like, I remember back in 2022, people saying in 3 years they're going to push a button.
Right. I have heard that. I have heard that one.
Bill Gates is using the vaccine to track us. And I mean, population
there's
control.
Population control. There's too many. There's too many.
We laugh about this stuff, but look what turned out because people laughed at individuals when they said this is all wrong and false. And that stuff all turned out to be true.
I regret some of my opinions looking back.
I was shocked at the response. I mean, I got deplatformed for literally just talking about GBS and in the hospital and showing it.
People are absolutely idiots. That's different than like the theories that the government's trying to control us or kill us.
But the government did impose mandates.
Because they're idiots.
I don't disagree with that, Jay. It was because I know from Canada, basically they were like, hey, everyone wear masks and stay 6 feet. And everyone in Canada was like, okay. and then most of this, there were obviously some people who were like, no. And everyone looked at them and be like, don't be an idiot. Put a mask on. Like they was like,
yeah, they'd yell at you like, you're killing people because you didn't get the vaccine, which turned out to be also not true.
Right. But I guess the point was is they didn't have to make shit up in Canada. They would just said, hey, do this. It's for the greater good. And everyone was like, okay.
I mean, I guess the litmus test for me is, did all the people that were saying you have to get the vaccine, they were mandating it, did they get the vaccine? And if they did, then they didn't truly believe this was super dangerous, because why would they let their family and their kids and take it?
Well,
themselves?
to your point with the idiots, like we are, we're educated and we're going to look at this and we're going to say, hey, like I'm going to make a calculation. I know that a vaccine that comes out in 8 months versus this one that usually takes 3 years, they're not going to have done the thorough process on it. There are going to be some risks, but is that going to prevent me from going and seeing my favorite band down the road? No, I'm just going to get the vaccine. I'm going to take the risk because I'm young and I think I'll be fine.
But the problem is you didn't get that during COVID. The Biden administration put in mandates and you didn't get that. And that's what is the scary part. You should have had that option. But when they rolled out the mandates,
I mean, to Jay's point, though, I did have the option. I just wouldn't have been able to travel. I wouldn't have been able to go to concerts. I wouldn't have been able to.
But it's not. Yeah, you wouldn't have been able to work. Your kids wouldn't have been able to go to certain events and their activities and all. It's go to
employers.
school.
The private industry was mandated. So even if you were in a Republican state, doesn't matter. You're a large employer. It's federals. You got penalties. You could lose your license. Like the federal government forced it.
Yeah, they definitely didn't handle it well. I got to sneak in one more. And this is for my wife because I want to settle this debate.
Canadians are lousy in bed. Is that the conspiracy theory?
She believes.
No, that's not true. Kyle's really good. Trust me.
Actually, yeah, go, and especially hockey players, Canadians. It's the multiple articles about their core strength and
they'll knock your teeth out.
So she believes wholeheartedly that her phone is constantly listening to her and feeding her ads based off of things she will just say randomly when her phone's not even on or being used.
100%.
Who disagrees?
Yeah.
I disagree.
I mean, it's just everybody's got the anecdote, right? Where they're literally talking about some there's things that I've done where I've talked about something that we're talking about going camping. I never camp. Like my favorite joke is camping. Like, to me, I talked to my buddy who's really well off and I said, do you ever go camping? And he's like, camping for me is a regular room at the Ritz. But anyway, so I'm talking about, I never talk about camping, but if we have that discussion, I say camping and suddenly I get delivered ads on tents and camping gear. Come on.
See, once again, correlation cause, like, I think you
so
are
wait. So just
underestimating-
randomly the camping ad hit me, like just because I said the word camping?
No, what happens is I think you underestimate how freaky good these algorithms are and how good they are at tracking things. So they can use geo technology. They know how the people you're talking to. So the reason that you're talking about camping, you'll be talking to your friend who might be one of your best friends. They can tell that you were talking to that person and that person will look up.
How?
That
How do
person
they
will
know
look
I'm
up
talking
camping.
to AJ? How do they know that AJ and I are having a conversation about
caught? They've been caught. In 2019, Facebook was caught. They found endless apps that were actually monitoring via the microphone. They've also found and caught smart devices, TVs that were listening in and collecting data. So the problem
I think you're so yes, there have been the only evidence that I found was basically rogue apps that are malware and maliciously did it. There are strict rules against Google, Apple, any of these people doing what you're saying is happening. And if they ever were caught purposely doing this, then it would be probably the biggest lawsuit in the history of technology. So what is happening is they could tell, hey, we're texting. Like, these are the people you contact. These are the people you do that. And then AJ will look up camping and then bring it up to you, and you'll talk about camping, but you'll never have looked it up. But they'll be able to know that you've talked to AJ. AJ just spent 2 days looking up camping. We're going to put it camping.
But if I'm having a cell phone conversation with AJ, or I'm having a dinner with AJ and bringing it up, how are they going to find out that I'm talking to AJ to begin with?
The point is there's a reason it was brought up. And even if it wasn't you that thought of it, AJ might have thought of it. And AJ might have already looked it up.
Right, but there's got to be that connection. But if we're having dinner in person, if he and I are having a glass of wine, which would never happen, but if we're having a steak and we're having a nice meal and we're having this conversation.
They can literally put it together. They know AJ was one of your friends, and they know that you were in the same place.
That's
for
true.
2
That
hours.
is true. Yes, they know that AJ was at the restaurant. AJ and I had dinner, last year. We were at Houston, so yes. They know that you're at Houston's, that I'm at Houston's. And so because AJ's been searching camping gear, now I'm suddenly going to get fed camping gear?
That's what happens.
Got it.
Hey, Kyle, can I ask a question?
Yep.
How does my Alexa know when I'm talking to it?
Okay, so I knew you were going to bring this up. The way it works is it listens for trigger words, and it stores things locally until a trigger word, and then it goes to the cloud.
Okay. So it's
yes,
always listening for trigger words.
yes,
So it's always listening.
yes.
So we've established that it's always listening. The only question is it taking the data that it's collecting from always listening, which we just established that it is, and doing something with that data that we don't know about? Because we've established that it's always listening.
They've done multiple, because this, as I said, this would be one of the biggest lawsuits ever. They've done multiple tests and
Apple paid $100 million because of Siri listening and sending it.
What they found is sometimes it's accidentally triggered and sent off, but it's not allowed to send data back to any servers. It's stored locally, and it's not allowed to send any data unless a trigger word has been used.
Let's all pick something and spend like 2 days just saying it around our phone, and then see something random, and then see if we get ads for it.
So, Kyle, let me ask you this. Does the government have the right to request the data from Siri, Apple, or Google, or whatever?
They could subpoena it. It depends.
Right. So if they want to say, hey, I want to get, even though you, Apple, can't do anything, as the government, we're requesting all that data, please upload it to this server.
I think actually, for all the things that I say badly about Apple is very, very good about protecting their users' privacy, and they will fight requests from the government if it is not lawful. They don't go down without a fight. So I do give Apple a lot of credit on that one. But there's been multiple studies. They haven't done a lot of studies lately, but they did it back in 2018, 19, 20, 21, right around there, because it became a big thing where people thought that their phones were listening to them, and there have been a ton of studies, and not a single one have found.
Who's sponsoring these studies? Was it like Apple and Google, or?
Well, Wired Magazine, University of Northeastern. And then they're required to do audits of this too, but we could talk about, self audits, how much of they're, incentivized. But
is this episode going to go for 100 hours, or are we going to get, like, at some point?
I told you that was the last one. Is there anything else on this list? Some people seem, especially Mauricio, seems a little grumpy that some of his weren't voted off.
The one conspiracy theory that I've been super intrigued about, and I've actually had some very revealing things in my mind that I hadn't even contemplated. So it's been very interesting that
birds aren't real.
And I want to, and I'm going to give full props to my good buddy, Joe Rogan, who's not a buddy at all. I don't know, and I've never met him. But this whole idea that the Egyptian pyramids were not built when everybody says they were built, because the technology is so crazy or whatever, that they were actually built maybe tens of thousands or millions of years before by some advanced thing. I'm like, that's an interesting conspiracy theory that I kind of want to dig into it, because it's kind of fascinating.
I think there's a lot more to that. I don't exactly know than meets the eye for a lot of reasons that I think just don't add up. And not just to the pyramids, but a lot of other stuff.
And so one theory, let me just tell you one conspiracy theory. It's not even a made up conspiracy, but when you realize how long humans have been on the earth, right? And we have like recorded history, which is not a lot. I think it's 6, I might be wrong, but I think it's like 6,000 or 7,000 years or whatever. And you think of how long a lot of folks believe the earth, like we're talking about hundreds of billions of years old, that there is this idea that I'd never thought about before. This is what kind of is interesting. And I'm not saying this is true. I'm just saying this is something I've been thinking about, which is we could have had a really advanced civilization 100 billion years ago that got wiped out of the earth. Like if suddenly something happens today that suddenly wipes out humanity, nuclear bombs, like whatever it is, wipes us all out from the face of the earth, and then we start again. So like all this evolutionary thing that we've talked about, like that happened, but there was something even before that. That's something I'd never even thought about, but it's
not probable that advanced aliens are out there. I feel like there's kind of the same stretch right now that you're.
So maybe the aliens showed up. Maybe the aliens showed up. There was a nuclear war with the aliens that wiped both the aliens and the humans off the face of the earth, and we started again.
That sounds.
But the pyramids lasted the entire time.
The pyramids survived.
The pyramids made it.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of the technological feats that they pulled off are super impressive to me, but not impossible. Like it's super impressive,
Keep in
but not
mind,
impossible.
they didn't have the internet. They didn't have Netflix. They had a whole lot of time on their hands to figure these things
And a
out.
whole lot of cheap labor.
And a whole lot of cheap labor.
Whole lot.
Yeah, I mean, I want to look into it because I keep hearing about the materials that were constructed. There's nowhere anything within hundreds of or maybe thousands of miles from the site, so they would have had to haul the limestone from like 1,000 miles. Like literally, you're in Miami, Florida, and you got to haul that by I don't know on your back all the way up to like Jacksonville, Florida, or like I mean, I'm not quite sure.
Well, as I said, cheap labor can achieve a lot of things. The one that I thought that was the most compelling is actually like the precision that they pulled this off. That like we can't even get like straight gaps on Teslas, but back then they could do like the precision down to the millimeters that they could do. Like was
right. And it's like I think it's all facing perfectly north or some direction, right? And it's all pointing in the same direction.
And the consistency of how they were built across the globe. So other pyramids in other regions, right? And the time frames around it. That's fascinating, I think, too. That there was consistency around how that only these things,
And weren't they supposed to be energy? Are they supposed to be energy sources that basically created free energy? Like it was like Tesla back in the day where they were able to harness the sun and somehow with the limestone, somehow it created energy.
I choose to just believe it's a good show of the capabilities of humans
of the whip
under the right
of
circumstances.
slave
More so than
You're a believer of the whip. Like as long as you have enough people to whip, you can get it done.
They were onto something.
more so like like if you have the conviction and belief that you can do something, that you can pull it off.
If you put your mind to it, anything is possible.
And got
Exactly.
lots and lots of slaves, you can do it.
All right,
Trudeau. That's the last one.
whatever
Trudeau. I'm
Yeah.
sticking to it. Trudeau.
there's a clip. Let's clip AJ for that. That'll be we were talking about doing clips and releasing ones. Let's do the AJ slave clip. Do you want to talk Epstein?
Do we disagree?
Is that related to the Clintons or is this separate?
What's the conspiracy around it?
Did he kill himself or was he killed?
Ooh.
I think he killed himself. I think that the guards just didn't care whether or not he lived or died.
I think he did, but it's because he was incentivized.
Probably.
I like that one.
Yeah, I just think I'm just thinking if I'm a guard there and they're like, "Hey, you got to like make sure this guy doesn't kill himself." Am I really losing any sleep? Like the
Put
guy's
the earbuds in, turn on YouTube, and
yeah, exactly. Oh, he killed himself.
oh wait, he's not done. I'm going back to my YouTube video.
Yeah. I'll report it when my episode's over.
But did the guard also purposefully disarm the camera? Is that what he did too?
That's where it's like, really? He's this huge high risk. Oops, cameras were off during this time.
The battery ran out of the cameras. Oops.
And nobody has ever killed themselves in that cell block before. Like they just didn't have.
And the Clintons are involved. I mean, it's like
on the list.
All right, let's move on to the top 10, Kyle.
That was the top 10.
That was the top 10, Mauricio. We did a whole top 10.
That was a 2-hour top 10?
Yep, 2-hour top 10.
Gosh.
I had a little bit of fun. We got our classic Jay in there. We got a little classic AJ in there. It was perfect. I think it was a good episode. So we're gonna do some plugs.
Yeah, we'll do this once every 100 episodes.
Mauricio, well, we're gonna do a couple episodes. Then we got our predictions episode coming up soon too, right?
Yeah, 2 weeks.
All right, Mauricio, you got a plug for us?
I'm going to plug I changed the name to Elite Syndicator Inner Circle. If you want to raise money compliantly.
Wait, is that different from last week too?
I forget. It's been a couple weeks, so maybe I said that last week, but
okay.
It's changed. So if you're looking to raise capital, dude, and there's, oh my God, we should do an episode of all the non-compliant crap that comes across my desk. But if you're interested in raising capital and you want to do it compliantly, reach out, coachingwithmauricio.com. I'll tell you all about it and we'll figure out if it's a fit.
What if we want to do it non-compliantly but don't want to get caught? Can we reach out?
You can talk to somebody else about that. I'm not sure who.
Can you give me any references, referrals?
I'll give you some references for that for sure.
And anybody who's interested in doing compliant, just forward it to us too. That'd be awesome. AJ, what do you got for us?
Let's do the YouTube. go check out the YouTube channel. I think it's AJ Osborne Official. I think that's what it is. So, yeah.
Which, by the way, you had an amazing guest that was recorded last week.
Amazing. It'll be out here soon.
It'll be out here soon. So an outstanding episode, one of your top interviewees of all time. I think that's what you said, but I'm not sure. I may be embellishing there, but
That's Mauricio. Mauricio, everybody. It's Mauricio.
Oh, really? Jeez. Oh.
I know you didn't get that, but it was.
Jay, what do you got?
My attorney's in the room, so I need to start with the disclaimer. This is not
right.
a solicitation for the sale of securities. Don't listen to anything I'm about to say.
this is a 506c. This is a 506c offering available to accredited investors only that will be verified.
Yep. Despite how awesome I have been in the past, is not a predictor of the fact that I'm necessarily going to be awesome in the future. You can draw your own conclusions, do your own due diligence on that. But we are raising for our newest offering, which is something I am so excited about. So and when I say we, Kyle, me, our team, and a couple partners are building a 351 unit ground up development outside of Dallas, Texas. It is a master plan community that's going to be absolutely amazing. We've got some tremendous development partners. It's a fantastic project. And if you're looking to passively invest in something and you want more information, reach out to me.
You didn't mention Ashley. Is Ashley involved in the project at all?
Ashley is running the project.
Thankfully, she's more involved than Jay.
I didn't hear her name mentioned, and when I think of the excellence of bar down investment, I definitely think of Ashley.
Sorry, Ashley Wilson's husband's wife. Ashley.
Actually, I just helped out designing the gym yesterday. It's going to be sick gym. Since we already mentioned her, I'm going to go plug my wife. It's going to be awesome. She's great. Follow her on Instagram. A lot of good content, better looking than Jay, and has a better Instagram. So go check her out. That's all I got, guys. Happy 100.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
On to
Happy
101.
100.
Love you guys. Just remember progress, impact, freedom. I will see you next Thursday.